В западных элитах очень сильно желание заморозить существующее положение, несправедливое положение вещей в международных делах. Они привыкли столетиями набивать брюхо человеческой плотью, а карманы деньгами. Но они должны понять, что бал вампиров заканчивается.
And I would agree with President Putin. The vampire's ball is coming to an end. Indeed it is. Everyone, Johnny here, Don't Speak News. Well, that was Putin telling you that the Western elites are used to stuffing their bellies with human flesh and their pockets with money. Well, that vampire's ball is coming to an end. And yes, it is. That's what he said in an interview here yesterday, as he called Western political and economic leaders vampires. Of course they are. Parasites, vampires. That's the best, actually, the kindest words you can put it, use for them. Just saying. Wow. Also, I found it funny that they're trying to, Google here in the States, at least, is trying to censor this pro-news website, Greek website. And so when I actually tried to translate it from the browser here, and it wouldn't let me do it. It said not able to translate. So I had to go to Google Translate, the homepage. I was able to do it there, as you can see, but it still tried to tell me that, it can't be translated. I guess they forgot to block their homepage on the, I don't know. Just ridiculous. Anyway, on to other news now. This is a claim that the U.S. has given the green light to the Israeli invasion of Lebanon. Well, I do know that they're sending another carrier group and they're sending more troops, and they've already got 40,000 there now between Jordan, Israel, Iraq, Syria. Anyway, they've given the green light for Israel to invade. According to Hal Turner, he says he just got word that Tel Aviv and Jerusalem informed Washington ahead of a large-scale military offensive into Lebanon. According to a security source, the U.S. gave Israel the green light to proceed with the operation. That makes sense since they're sending more troops and naval assets to the region. It's probably going to happen very soon. Urgent. China calls on its citizens to immediately leave Israel. So another story from Hal here, and this, seems to jive pretty well with what the U.S. is saying to Israel, and now China is telling its citizens to immediately leave Israel. So China has sent shockwaves around the world by issuing an urgent directive to any of its citizens in Israel to leave immediately. China, Russia, and Iran, so on, are brothers in arms. They must know something ominous is coming for them to tell their people to leave Israel. Everyone else is telling their citizens to leave Lebanon, but China says the opposite. Very interesting indeed. Because in case you didn't know, Iran's had nukes since 1992. They got them from Kazakhstan after the Soviet Union dissolved. Just saying. I've shown that story from the LA Times many times on this channel. Japan, also scrambling fighter jets as Russian and Chinese military planes enter airspace. This is probably because Russia and China are having joint military exercises in the Pacific. But nonetheless, Japan had to scramble fighters because they violated their airspace. So Japan scrambled fighter jets Monday after a Russian surveillance plane entered Japanese airspace 3 different times, according to the Defense Ministry, with Air Self-Defense Force fighters deploying flares for the first time since Tokyo began enforcing measures against such incursions. Yeah, it's kind of serious when they have to start deploying flares to get them to go away. So Defense Minister Minoru Kariya said a Russian IL-38 patrol aircraft had violated Japanese airspace off Hokkaido's Riban Island 3 times for a period of 1 minute 30 seconds and 1 minute on Monday afternoon. They say that this violation of our airspace is extremely regrettable, and today we have largely stern protests with the Russian government via diplomatic channels, while also strongly requesting that they provide or prevent a recurrence. And that was what he told a hastily organized news conference at the ministry. This airspace incursion was the first publicly announced entry into Japanese airspace by a Russian military aircraft since 2019. Kihara said that, and followed by an incursion by a Chinese military spy plane off Nagasaki Prefecture late last month. Japan called that move utterly unacceptable and said it considered the flight a threat to the country's safety. That's just short of, talking about war. So in responding to Monday's incidents, Chiara said that they sent up F-15s and F-35s and had issued warnings over the radio, deploying the flares, which he said was one measure we can take in the event of a violation of our airspace on the Russian aircraft's third incursion. Flares are intended to be fired to confuse heat-seeking missiles, but are also commonly deployed to warn away other aircraft. And so, like it says here, he said that it was possible the incursions were related to joint Russian military exercises with China in the area. So probably why it happened, but nonetheless, it's a threatening move. And China and, not China, but I should say Japan and Russia have had a long-standing feud over these islands that sit between the two countries. Also, of course, we all know that China and Japan do not have a very good history with one another. In fact, they have quite the rivalry. So, going back to World War II, especially, and how Japan really tortured the Chinese when they took over. Just saying. So Japan scrambles fighter jets so that the worldwide Armageddon continues to expand. And then we have, let's see here, U.S. testing a Minuteman nuclear missile capable of reaching Russia. So the U.S. is going to test another Minuteman III, ratcheting up tensions once again. And then we have this. Putin ally warns Russia's nuclear weapons are in full combat readiness. And this just isn't anyone. This is Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. A close ally of Putin President Vladimir Putin warned on Friday that Moscow's nuclear weapons are in full combat readiness. According to TASS, the Russian state news agency, Lavrov said in an interview with Sky News Arabia that while nobody wants a nuclear war, he warned that the country's nuclear weapons are in full combat readiness. We talk about red lines, expecting that our statements will be heard by intelligent, decision-making people. It is not serious to say that if tomorrow you do not want what I demand of you, we will press the red button, the Russian foreign minister said. I'm convinced that in such situations, decision makers have an idea of what we are talking about. Nobody wants a nuclear war. He added that Russia possesses weapons that will have serious implications for the handlers of the Ukrainian regime, meaning, of course, NATO and the USA. Newsweek reached out to the Russian and Ukrainian defense ministries via email for comment. Lavrov remarks come after another Putin ally, Russian Prime Minister Medvedev, issued a new nuclear response warning last week. In a Telegram post last week, Medvedev, deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council and former Russian president, spoke about a nuclear response that is a hugely complex decision with irreversible consequences, but warned you can only test someone's patience for so long. Yet Russia has been patient. It is obvious that a nuclear response is a hugely complex decision with irreversible consequences. What arrogant Anglo-Saxon dimwits fail to admit, though, is that you can only test someone's patience for so long. He added that it will turn out in the end that certain moderate Western analysts were right when they warned, true, the Russians are not likely to use this response, although it's still a possibility. Besides, they may use new delivery vehicles with conventional payloads, and then it's over. A giant block of molten gray mass is in the place where the mother of Russian cities, historical name of Kiev, once stood. Holy bleep, it's impossible, but it happened. So, anyway, it says here that responding to a previous inquiry from Newsweek, the U.S. State Department dismissed the seriousness of Medvedev's various statements. We know by now not to take Medvedev seriously. This is standard Kremlin nonsense. And it very well could be. Because Medvedev says all kinds of things that he never backs up, or that Russia never backs up. So he's kind of the propaganda mouthpiece for Putin. But when Lavrov speaks, it's a little different. People pay attention. He's the foreign minister for Russia. I mean, he's right next to Putin. He's Putin's right-hand man on the foreign stage. So that is why I'm paying attention to this story, not because of Medvedev. I always take his statements with a huge grain of salt. But now, with China tensions rising, U.S. revives a World War II era Pacific airfield. In case you weren't aware, the island of Tinian is now being rebuilt. This is where they bombed Japan from with the nuclear weapons, and now they're rebuilding it in order to be ready to attack China. So Beijing's growing influence in the Pacific is spurring the recovery of a slew of abandoned runways on the 40-square-mile speck of land that makes up Tinian, part of the U.S. territory of Northern Marianas Islands. So I bet you didn't know they were doing this. Some of you probably did. But in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, an abandoned U.S. airfield, once key to dropping a nuclear bomb on Japan, was nearly lost to history amid encroaching forest, is being revived. As the Americans hack away at the jungle overgrowth at Tinian Island Airfield and other old World War II era bases across the region, it won't be with Japan on their mind, but rather with China. It's Beijing's growing influence in the Pacific that's spurring the recovery of a slew of abandoned runways on the 40 square mile speck of land that makes up Tinian. And it's part of the U.S. territory of the Northern Mariana Islands. Yes, it's part of those islands that also is included with Guam. I was stationed there for a couple of years. So rehabilitation of World War II era airfields has provided Pacific Air Forces a rapidly executable avenue to enhance infrastructure in the region. In other words, they're expanding their influence in the Pacific, and they're using the old air bases to do it. So there you go. All kinds of stuff going on here today, as always. And it's just going to keep getting worse. But this vampire's ball, like Putin says, yeah, it's coming to an end. And what we're going to see soon is the return of Jesus Christ. As I've talked about many, many times here recently, from Revelation 16, I keep talking about it, and I'm going to keep trumpeting it. And we'll start in verse 15. Behold, there comes a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. And he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. And there's Yemeni armies moving towards Israel. There's Iraqi militias and Syrian militias and all kinds of militias moving towards Israel. And of course, we have China, Russia sitting on edge, Ukraine, NATO, Putin talking, or Lavrov, Putin's right-hand man, talking about nuclear war and that their arsenals are ready. And Putin, of course, saying that this vampire's ball is about to end. And I can't wait for it to end and see the return of Jesus Christ myself. So guys, get ready. It's coming. If you haven't accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior today, then, or by now, I don't know what to tell you. But you need to do so right now before it's too late, because he could return at any moment. And you don't know when your last day here is anyway. It could all end today, tomorrow, we don't know. Our next step could be our last one. And then the next one after you die is eternity, and you want to spend it in the right place. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. No one gets to the Father but through him, not through any other name. So seek him as your Lord and Savior today while there's still time. All right. Well, if you want to subscribe to the website here at don'tspeaknews.com, which is home base for everything that we do, click the subscriber tab right here, subscribe, contact Johnny tab, type in your email, hit subscribe, and you're in. Every time I put up a new post, you'll be notified. If you'd like to support us, and we're headed towards the end of the month, and we could use your support as we can every month, here are all the links to do so right here. And we sincerely appreciate everyone who has supported thus far in this month. And also, if you want to find us on YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, Telegram, and other places, here are all the links under this tab. YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, and Telegram. And here are all the links to where you can find us, including Substack. And that is it for now. I'll keep my eyes on all of this as always. God bless, take care. Johnny Storm, Don't Speak News.